Let's turn now to the latest in Washington. President Biden delivered a speech last night from the Oval Office explaining his decision to step aside and end his re-election campaign.
I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation.
Joining us now to react to that and also what lies ahead for the 2024 presidential race, we want to bring in Yahoo Finance's Washington correspondent, Ben Werschkul. Ben, it's great to have you here. So let's just start with what we heard from President Biden last night. What stuck out to you in his speech?
I mean, I think what stuck out was what you heard in that sound. This was a very somber, wistful sort of appearance. A key subtext here was for Biden to be in front of cameras for the first time since he's been sick with COVID and kind of show the country he could continue for the next 6 months. And I think he did that. And there's some takeaways for the business community to the extent that there are any here. A big one is kind of what he signaled about how he wants to spend the next 6 months. There were some economic themes in there, and you saw some of it with more this morning in terms of his response to the GDP number. But overall, he's trying to focus on other issues. Israel's a big one. He's meeting with Bibi Netanyahu today. He talked about that a good amount in other parts of the speech. There's a few kind of smaller legislative ideas he has that he wants to push. But again, it sort of is more specific and sort of the overall idea of lowering the temperature and in terms of the markets, lowering the volatility. One takeaway I've heard in the last few hours about it is that this is his first farewell. So in other words, this is kind of his first farewell from the campaign, and then we'll have 6 more months, and then there'll be a farewell from his time as president.
That's really interesting context from your sources, Ben. Thanks for bringing us that. I do want to follow with you on the person that the president is passing the torch to, Vice President Kamala Harris, of course. She just released the first official video of her presidential campaign. It does feature Freedom by Beyonce, who gave her permission to feature that song. Ben, what are your sources telling you about the path forward for the Harris campaign, specifically as it relates to the all-critical factor for all campaigns, which is that fundraising piece?
For sure. Yeah, no, the contrast here in the last 12 hours, couldn't be more stark. You had that speech from Biden, and then you have this ad that features Beyonce. It's a remarkable difference. In terms of the mood among Democrats, though, the sense I get from talking to folks is there's a sense that this first 4 days of the Harris campaign couldn't have gone any better. She's consolidated the delegates. She's had a record-breaking donor haul. We can talk more about the donors. She's got no major opposition. And the Dems even signaled yesterday that they could begin the process of a virtual nomination. So she'd formally be the nominee, and that could begin as early as next week. All 4 of those things, Thursday afternoon when we got this letter from Biden, were definitely open questions, and now she's sort of seemed to have answered there. The donor side of it, as you mentioned, is a real big one. That's a big element of this too. A lot of donors immediately got behind her. Reid Hoffman was Biden's biggest donor as of a couple months ago. He was immediately on board. Other folks, George Soros' son was another one that got a lot of attention. Other folks I talked to. The real interesting one was another Reid. You're seeing it on the screen now. This is Reed Hastings of Netflix, the co-founder and executive chairman. So this is what he said after she secured the delegates. Congratulations, Kamala Harris. Now's the time to win. But what's telling is that 2 days before that, in that afternoon, he tweeted, Dem delegates need to pick a swing state winner. It doesn't mention her name, but that's sort of a telling little note of opposition in those early moments where maybe he's thinking about somebody like a Josh Shapiro, maybe he's thinking about Gretchen Whitmer. In that next day, all of those candidates got behind Kamala Harris, and now Reed Hastings is on board, and he's also reportedly donated $7 million to a Kamala Harris aligned group. So that sort of tells you how much it's consolidated. In terms of the overall picture, just to kind of level set for folks, Donald Trump is still the front runner here, I think is fair to say in terms of what we're looking for ahead to November. There was a CNN poll that had him 49% nationally, 46% for Harris. It's within the margin of error, and she's performing better than Biden did in the same poll. So that tells you that there's a certain amount of ground being made up, but at the same time, she's going up against a Trump campaign that just came off a pretty successful convention and has plenty of money that's of its own to put for the campaign ahead.
Ben, great insight. Thanks so much for bringing that to us. You never would have guessed that this was your first time on live. We were speaking to elements. We were all very, very impressed back here in the studio. So, Ben, thank you so much for making the time to join us. We look forward to hopefully having you on Yahoo Finance Live even more. And also make sure to check out Ben's new podcast. It's Capital Gains. It airs every Friday on Yahoo Finance and on Spotify. It airs on Yahoo Finance, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You certainly don't want to miss that.